Welcome to the Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show, we'll have a talk about a Linux project, general Linux distribution, but it could also center around a desktop environment or application. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. Tonight is an open mic night, so pretty much it's kind of like an anything goes, but it's anything goes that's Linux, tech, and open source. So we don't want to hear about. I'm just not going to say anything. All right. So how is everybody tonight?
Excellent.
Great.
All right. In case you don't know, I'm Nate, or Cubicle Nate. I have Jinda, Scrapjaw, and Dan Kelly with me. And so it's going to be maybe a little bit of a light show. You know, it's April 30th. Maybe something crazy is going on out there. You know, spring has sprung-ish, sort of. It's raining like crazy here right now. I can hear it. But that said, have you guys been doing anything exciting in Linux this week?
I don't know about Linux, but I found out that my closet's like a time machine. I stepped in there and came out on the other side with this thing from the 90s.
That's awesome.
But it's warm.
Well, you know, I like that. So you have a time machine. So kind of like the wardrobe in Chronicles of Narnia almost. Kind of what I'm picking up.
Well, C.S. Lewis action there.
C.S. Lewis is brilliant, or was brilliant. His stuff's still brilliant. That's awesome.
And we have Colin here, and I watched his video on Doc. He has a video on Doc-like on how to put it together and compile it. He has some scripts and stuff like that. At first, I kind of stuck my nose up in the air at it because it didn't seem. Colin couldn't seem to get it to do flat pack zap images, and it had some issues because it's kind of in its early stage. But I did try it in a VM. It compiled and everything. It looked like it installed. I didn't see any errors, but when it was all done, I couldn't get it to work. It was like it was never installed. Because I'm a Peppermint developer, tester, that's what I, installed it in, was a Peppermint VM, just like Colin showed. And
yeah, my Peppermint was up to date definitely when I did it, but I don't know, maybe it's just bad timing or something, but it is what can you say, experimental at the moment, I suppose, or in heavy development. So,
well, so is Peppermint.
Yeah, so you're going to have issues, I suppose. And I did it in a VirtualBox, so you never know.
This is true. So tell me about this application a little bit more. Like, what is this? Why would I run it? And what is the selling feature of this application?
Okay, you've looked at MX Linux, right?
Of course.
Their XFCE version.
Absolutely.
Instead of having the long windows like XP bars at the bottom for your programs and stuff like that, Doc-like makes little boxes like Windows 7.
Okay.
Puts dots in them for every instance of that program you got open.
I gotcha.
That's supposed to be the whole thing of it. And when it's working, it looks really cool. If you tried an MX Linux, it's like, man, I got to have this, And then if you get another Debian distro, it's like, man, I sure like to take that MX Linux look and kind of put it at the bottom of my bar.
It's sort of like modernizes the XFCE panel pretty much.
Right. It brings it out of the dark ages.
Well, I never would have said it was in the dark ages, but hey, what can I say? I maybe my standards are a little bit low. Maybe I'm still stuck in the dark ages and I have no idea.
Well, come on. Linux Mint was seeing this coming, and then for a while they offered you both choice. I think they still do offer you both choices, the XP long stuff or the Windows 7 box type stuff. You get your choice when you install it.
Okay.
I think they have a choice within the welcome screen after boot up, after you install as well. Yeah. Yeah, everyone seems to be going that way anyway, where you've got like, bars or dots or whatever at the bottom. And I mean, except for GNOME.
Right. GNOME's in a class all by itself.
But if you put the dash to panel in, then you can have all those sorts of fancy stuff anyway.
Well, that's true.
So it can
Steve's
be.
Here.
Steve did make it. How exciting. I think maybe his hyperbaric chamber's opening up or something.
Is Steve Darth Vader today or what?
He is.
He's running
Lord
his
Vader.
blender for special
Rise.
things.
Unbelievable. We're not live yet, are we?
Oh, we are.
Oh, really?
Here we are.
Then good. I
My,
can expletive deletives.
I didn't make it before the show because my Zoom wouldn't work. Just wouldn't open for
I
some
had
reason.
camera problems too. I had to log out and unplug my camera and move it to a different USB port.
Zoom is crashing on my desktop. Telegram was crashing, telling me all of a sudden my GPL is not enabled or my driver graphics are not up to date. And it's like, I was just in here this afternoon.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you offended it. Did you say something crass? Maybe a little bit off.
Maybe they hired someone from Walgreens Tech. I'll tell you. I can't even believe to tell you the problem.
I think you said an inappropriate W word there. I think so. I have to scrub that out when I upload the show. Let's make a note about it. Awesome sauce. Now, has anybody done anything that they want to maybe share about? Like, so obviously, Steve, you've had some troubles with your. Is it peppermint or pop or is it? What are you running right now?
I'm on pop.
Okay.
And I kicked my son out of the office here, and I'm like, I'm going on tonight, and because right now I'm on my laptop, and don't know what's going on here. All of a sudden, Zoom is crashing, telling me my graphic drivers aren't up to date, and I've been running 510 with no problem, NVIDIA 510 since it came out. I don't know if it's because pop updated or what, but it's been a little insane. But I have done a lot this week.
Yeah,
don't know
I
how
understand.
fit it all in.
Magic. You have superpowers. You're like Doctor Strange. We'll call you Doctor Very Own. Well, excellent. Glad to have you back because I missed you last week. You know, you have like the least punchable face on all the internet was not here to be a part of the show, and it was really kind of sad.
Yeah, it was. I had to work a double shift, and then I was also sicker than a dog too. I did.
Oh man,
there's no way I was gonna get up in the morning.
I gotcha. Hey, you got to take care of you because you're all you got sometimes.
Yep.
So can't push too hard. Now, Colin, you have been playing with some things. I see. I saw a video, I think, in my notifications today. I didn't watch it yet. Was it today or yesterday? You did something like some kind of a.
Yeah, that was the what's it called? The utilities program in Storm OS, which I did a video of last October or something. And the developer asked me to take a look at the utilities program. So it's a little utility thing that has all these clickable, what can you say, clickable boxes that help you update your Arch system and upgrade it and so forth. So it's got all these little things. So I took a look at that. That was quite
Ben's
interesting.
distro?
There's a group of people that are doing things for Stormfish OS, Storm OS. I think Ben's a part of a lot of it. And now I just another one from Matthew Moore, which he hasn't
There's
been
too many
active
storms out there.
Too many storms. And there's some more brewing.
Yeah.
But there's one from Matthew Moore called Titan Linux, which is quite interesting, based on Debian. Because I've been subscribed to Matthew Moore for a very long time, but he hasn't been active on YouTube for the longest of times, probably because he's been working on this Titan Linux, which is quite an interesting project. It's got the KDE desktop. It's been slimmed down to be quite fast. It's got a lot of little options in there as well, so that help you get it up and running. It's based on Debian stable, I think. So that's quite an interesting project. So I might do a video on that when I get a chance. Not that I need to. I mean, he's got 30-something thousand subscribers, so there should be quite a few people out there that see it. But I think there's only about 10% of your subscribers watch your videos anyway. So I think it works out.
If another person does a look at it, does a video, that kind of bolsters up the
algorithms
of the OS.
Yes.
Like,
That's
Yeah,
like
there's a-
with Peppermint, we like people to make videos about Peppermint and tell us what they think about them, except for, you know, those few naysayers out there I won't mention, but for the most part, we've gotten some pretty good videos out of a lot of people.
Is Steve being difficult again? Is that what you said, all the naysayers?
Steve is always nice.
Oh,
It's actually something I would like to talk about today. It's just come up randomly at the moment, but I mean, there's a big trend on a lot of people trying to make Arch Linux user friendly right now.
Mm-hmm.
That
that like
seems to be the biggest trend.
is that like trying to make a 3 on a tree stick shift an automatic?
Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like, yeah, well, you know, you've got your, what do you call it? Semi-automatic, which is like a manual, but you don't need a clutch to change it, right? Buses have had those for many years.
Right.
Colin,
Right,
I think you're sort of true. Like, I'm working to make EndeavorOS install on the ARM, like a GUI version. Right now we have a script version, which very few people know how to do. So I'm trying to do a color matters version. Like, I think you're true. Like, many people are trying to make Arch more user friendly, including me.
I think if they make Arch user friendly and they try and make it more and more that way, it's worthless unless they can keep it from breaking. If they can get the updates down to where they're not breaking systems, or you can go a month and not update and then do an update and it don't break, that's worth more than user friendly.
Well, this is interesting because this was part of my criticism. One of my criticisms of this distro that I just looked at with the utilities program was the fact that it was doing what Peppermint did, and Peppermint changed it. It was updating, but then just closing. It wasn't giving any feedback to the user. And I did suggest to the developer that he might want to try and put some little boxes in there that the user can click on.
We are fixing that. We have a whole new updater that's being installed, and it'll do some things in the terminal. Have a rotating wheel and stuff for each motion it's going through. Then when it's done at the bottom, it'll give you a list, you know, or it'll ask you if you want to see the list. You push L and there's a list there, or you push Q and it quits, but it leaves behind a file that you can open with the text editor and see everything that it did. That's how it currently is in build.
Peppermint's not so bad because it's based on Debian, but when it comes to Arch Linux, if they want new users to be involved in Arch Linux, they also need to somehow educate them on what the system is doing, because you really do need to know. It's important that you do need to know an Arch Linux, right? Because I suppose there's got to be a certain amount of education to be done. Otherwise, the user, you know, Arch Linux, like you said, things can go wrong because it's constantly updating. So you need to know how to fix things, which they've got the processes in place to do that, because it can take a snapshot of your system info and things like that. So that's part of the utility of itself. So they'll be able to talk to the devs and hit a button. They'll be telling, they could tell them how to hit a button and give us your system info and stuff. So that's all good. But I think there's a certain amount of education that needs to be instilled with the installer, with the user, I believe.
Yeah, even as nice as Garuda was when I was using it, the thing that didn't break it was actually me doing things to the system itself. Like once it was installed, if I'm working with the packages that are there, that was fine. And it was even, they have, you know, the check boxes for taking out all the pipe wire stuff and using pulse and jack. And I did that and my stuff worked and then tried using pipe wire and it worked fine. But then their updates, like whatever would come through the Arch thing, about once every couple weeks or so, the Garuda team, which to their credit, they have an automated little notification that pops up on your desktop and it says, hey, there's and it's in there in the update utility. They tell you that there's manual intervention and then there's documentation for it. So to their credit, they do that, but sometimes it's not always like that. Manual intervention doesn't always address whatever the most of the things that may be broken. And there may be multiple ways that whatever was broken needs to be fixed depending on which DE you're using or other software packages. Because then that's where it escalates at that point.
Yeah.
They had issues with pipe wire that in the audio stack that wasn't just my issue. Being someone that likes to tweak and mess with all the things under the hood of the audio stack, but other people in general, where when one thing in particular was a Python update that happened, and a lot of apps rely on Python. And so there were some things that were broken for a few months, and some of those updates, to be honest, that weren't Garuda's issue, but necessarily, but it was Python across distros. So depending on what software you were running, there were some issues. But then again, it also is partially a thing with running Arch because it is rolling to some degree, right? So you're gonna not have the stability of something like an LTS, where maybe you won't get that Python update right off the rip.
Well, I think the problem with some of these Arch-based distros is they might be using, or they might give you an option of selecting a different kernel, like the hardened kernel, which is what the distro was that I just looked at.
Or
They've got all
Zen.
these options:
Yeah.
Zen kernel, hardened kernel, long-term support kernel. Then you've got your stable kernel. So, I mean, if you've decided to select any one of those, how do they manage that? I mean, that they can have intervention, but I mean, if somebody's running a custom kernel, then they really need to know how to manage that, the user themselves, I think, which is where new users can get into trouble, I think, doing that. Because a lot of people might use, I think it's a hardened kernel for gaming, is it? Or the Zen kernel?
The Zen kernel.
The Zen kernel, is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so
Zen kernel is even good for running audio because it gives you quicker latency.
Right. Okay.
It really is nice. It has some tweaks to do with the scheduler and CPU process stuff. But you're right. Yeah.
How is the Zen kernel when it comes to like a power consumption efficiency?
Well, on Garuda, it's basically you can't use like for instance, I'm on a laptop, but I don't take my laptop anywhere right now. It's just basically my home PC. It just runs everything at performance. It's a performance based kernel from what I can tell. So like your CPU, any of your CPU throttling backend daemons and whatnot you can put in, they don't play well.
It's a Hemi.
Yes.
I see. Okay, so we're not gonna get a whole lot of fuel economy here. This is not an electric hybrid. This is a gas guzzling hog of an electric sucking something.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, very cool.
See, the thing is with Arch Linux. I mean, I run Arch Linux, the one that Esnix allows me to make ISOs from, and I believe it's running the stable kernel. As long as I continue to do my updates, I don't really have issues. But things like Garuda, who offer different kernels and so forth, I don't know how they manage users with all that can have different issues across the board.
Well, Manjaro has them too, Colin. And
yes, that's correct. You're right.
When I first loaded this, I'm coming up on 2 years of using it now. A couple months in, I did change kernels and I want to break in something in there or whatever. So I just learned my lesson and I leave it alone. And when an LTS comes out, that's when I change it. So I haven't, knock on wood, haven't had any real major issues on this since I've been running it. The only time that I did was when I was gone for a length of time, came back and there was 400 something updates, but that I had my printer kind of something let loose in there, and it was just a simple package to add back in and it fixed it. So it's this thought that, I was leery about doing any kind of Arch or Arch based because, and I think part of it, that's probably one of the reasons why I kind of attribute to maybe having so much good luck with this, is the fact that I'm less likely to play with it as much or mess with it under the hood as much. I do things. I mean, I still go into the file system once in a while when I want to do things and that kind of thing. But I'll give you a perfect example. When you have the NVIDIA drivers in here, Ryan some time ago had done a video on when you restart your computer, it seems like it doesn't save the pipeline settings in there. It'll save everything else, but for some reason it turns it off. And I notice I'll get a little bit of screen tearing. I turn it back on, it's fine. Yet if I log in as root, they are in fact saved. So to try to save it from the user side of things versus root, it won't give you access.
Are you
And
talking about the
I have-
NVIDIA pipeline?
Yes, and I haven't worried
Yeah.
enough about it to do anything. I just open it up,
You
click
must,
it,
you must,
and activate it. Let me hang on, Dan, before I lose my thought. But my point is Ryan had made this video on how to do a specific decomp file to add in there, and it did work before. But as the system seems progressing, now what it did was cause the black screen. So I thought, you know what? I'm not one more thing I'm not messing with. Then I'll just have to know if I reboot that I have to just go in there and manually click it, and it's done. Takes 2 seconds, you know. But honestly, I think I don't know what to compare to because again, this is the first one I've been on. But again, I'm coming up on, you know, probably late summer, maybe late August, September. It'll be 2 years for me being on this, and I have no intention of ever leaving it. I really do enjoy it.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
yeah, with the NVIDIA settings box, you have to actually just open a terminal and type sudo and then NVIDIA settings, and it'll bring it up after you put your password in it with editing capabilities. And
I did that. That's what I'm saying. If I enter in as root, it shows that they are in fact set in place. But when you come in as just a user base, it doesn't, for whatever reason, it doesn't do that. And you know, on the Ubuntu side of things, you can go in and once you've set that up and do that, you know, you're able to save it all the time like that, just right over, you know, the X11 file that, you know, whatever folder you put it
Yeah.
in. Or so
With
I don't
that-
know what the difference is, but it wasn't important enough for me to waste tons of time on just to figure that out, you know.
That's bizarre.
With Debian, you got a sudo to actually save your settings, but you can always view them without this, the sudo, and they'll be the same. You just can't change them.
Yeah.
Well, cool beans.
Yeah.
So the what are you doing in Linux kind of already fell into the open mic activities, which is great. And I don't want to derail any of the conversation, but I do want to make sure that I say, it's open mic night. Anything that you have that you want to talk about is free to discuss. Once we're through with that, I got some news topics to go through. We'll do our community free pour, last call, and we'll say our, Auf Wiedersehens or see is or whatever you want to say after that.
How's your 3D printer feeling?
Well, it's off right now. I finished a print up and then I thought I would just shut it down so it would be making noise.
Give it a break.
Right there. Yeah, give it a break. But Octoprint is an amazing. Did I talk about that last week? Octopi?
No, but it's really good. Go on.
Oh,
Go on.
okay. Well, Octoprint is the Pi version of Octoprint, is an amazing thing to put on your 3D printer. So I have an Ender 3, which is obviously not the top of the line printer you can buy out there. It's a decent printer. And I have an extra Raspberry Pi, so I put that Raspberry Pi. I printed off parts for it so I could mount it to the 3D printer. So I printed off parts for my printer, which is kind of funny to think about it. Machines making machines, how perverse. To quote C3PO.
Skynet.
Yeah, that too. So what the Octopi does is it serials into the 3D printer, so you have remote control access of the printer through a web client type interface. And then I have a little web camera on there, so I can actually check and see what my printer's doing. I can pick up my phone and check it out. I can see it, watch it printing, or if it screws up, I can quickly run out from my house over here to shut it down or whatever. And I can monitor the temperature levels too. It shows me like the temperature of the end as well as the bed in a nice little graph, so you can actually watch what it's doing. See all the numbers. It's super cool. I really like it. I can also, instead of having to use the little SD card to put on images, which is why I built a device here just to make that easier. I don't have to do that now. I just upload whatever G code files to it and then start the print from there. So it's very cool. I really enjoy it. I like it's an added level of automation as well as control remote, because a lot of times I'm in my house. There's a lot of most of the kid activities happen over there. So it's not, I mean, we could do kid activities in here, I suppose. There are Legos here, but I don't want my kids breaking my Legos. So there's that. Anyway, Octoprint, it's a great project. It's great for controlling your Pi. I highly recommend it if you want to have just a little bit more coolness on your printer. It's definitely a great thing. Super awesome. I don't know why I waited so long to do it. So
Cool.
yeah, pretty fun.
If one
I
of
know
your kids breaks a Lego, you can just print another one.
Well, it's actually not the kids that break the Lego. It's the dog that eats them. It's really weird.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Doesn't like eat them, just like crunches on them. I'm like, what's, you have these little bone things. Can't you just chew on that? Why do you have to chew on Legos? So, whatever.
I have 2 dogs, and I did not realize that was a thing.
It shouldn't be a thing. I've never had it happen before, but it's a greyhound that I'm watching long term while the family builds a new house. So they're renting right now. So she's 9 years old, a little bit nutty. What can you do?
And go ahead.
I was gonna say, just give her all the love you can, and
go from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's a decent dog. I mean, she sleeps most of the time. She I mean, I'll come in the house and she'll just be lying there on her bed, just kind of just basically half dead most of the time. It seems like. And then she comes alive and she's just got like a burst of energy or runs around the yard. You're supposed to have them fenced in, like a yard, before you send out your greyhound. And I did that, but then I trained the dog to, every time she comes back to the house, I give her a treat. So now she doesn't want to run off. She wants that treat. So I've motivated the dog with food to never run away.
Yeah, that didn't work with mine. He decided to take off before we had our yard fenced in to chase a butterfly. I could not find a dog in my life. I'm out in the woods, and it's like still quiet. I'm like, where is this dog? And all of a sudden, he leaps out of a leaf pile to chase the butterfly. So finally, I tackle the dog. He's a 60-pound pitty. I tackle him. I pick him up, and I call my wife, and I say, "Come get me at the complex down the road because I have the dog." So she picked me up along with the dog, and after that, we were smart and got a fence. That was the end of that.
Yeah. Well, this dog's also old, so there's that. She doesn't.
Less motivated to take off. Sully was about a year old when this happened.
Yeah, that's younger dogs are more apt to, I think, explore unnecessarily. That's for sure.
That holds true for the humans too.
Yes, that's true. What you're saying is, a shickle is more inclined to drive off in the sunset with his Cooper Mini, and you're probably more content to sit there on your recliner.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
A shickle is more inclined to hop about 10 distros a day, and we're more inclined to probably just sit on the same distro a year.
I'll hop multiple distributions at the same time on different machines. I have no hesitation.
Yeah.
I right there with you. I do the same thing. So guilty as charged.
Yeah, so this week I installed Linux or Zorin Lite 16 on the laptop I have in our family room showing our family slideshows. I had Peppermint, the new Peppermint, on there. There's an issue. I like to use Variety wallpaper changer. And in Debian, and I found out, sorry, Dolphin, this happened on MX2, that while you're running Variety, it flickers every time the wallpaper changes. And then if you put up the clock, it flickers every second or every minute that the clock is changing. Never happens, and I'm told it's like was XFCE's window manager, but never happened on Peppermint 10, and didn't happen on Linux Lite, and now doesn't happen on Zorin Lite. And Zorin Lite is actually beautiful. It's probably one of the best XFCE implementations I have ever seen. But I had it on I had it downloaded, so I went with that. And then I'm working on, you were talking about Arch being an issue for maybe new users and not education. I have to say, pretty much unless you know what you're doing, and I don't know what I'm doing, Debian. So I have been working on installing GNOME 42 on a Debian base and trying to get it to be usable.
That's a tough right there.
Yeah, I've learned a lot, and I think some more hair fell out while I was learning it. Some of it was nice. Oh, this is pretty cool. And others like, are you kidding me? Where is, and I can't find, finding documentation, even going to the Debian wiki, just doing searches in that. It's one thing I'm going to talk about tomorrow morning, but it's been an interesting road. I'll tell you that much. The easiest part was updating 3 Pop OSs to 2204.
I've had good luck as far as GNOME 42 goes. I've had good luck with OpenSUSE's iteration of GNOME 42. It's been very stable on the system that I run it on, and I've been very pleased with the changes that have come along with GNOME 42 as a result. So hats off to the OpenSUSE team and for the work they've put in with GNOME 42.
Yeah. So, but what I'm doing is I made it even worse. I was going from an XFCE base, XFCE to GNOME and removing XFCE. So it's been an interesting week and a half. I think I started.
You doing that on Peppermint or just a straight out Debian?
Tune in tomorrow and you'll find out.
Oh, because I'll be at work.
No, yeah, I'm doing it. It's on Peppermint. Graphic had made a comment about how we can be used for other bases, so it's okay. And one of the driving factors was because of a variety wallpaper changer. My wife like this. I don't like this. I don't like the flickering. I can't see the clock. So with the wives. But if they like something, especially on the computer, you are going to keep it up. So that's why I ended up going to Zorin Lite. So I figured, okay, I use variety on all my setups.
Don't even start. Don't even start.
Once I moved to 42, it stopped working. It loads, but it stops working. It shows up in the progress bar, but now it's not bringing up wallpaper or anything. It's not. I don't think it's variety. I think it has to do with 42.
So for the unenlightened, what show would this be on tomorrow?
The Sunday Linux Coffee Clutch, 8 a.m. Central.
Steve's very own.
Steve's very own.
8 a.m. Central. It's a little early for my taste.
It's my quiet time during the weekend, and everybody's sleeping. But I'll
9
be going
a.m.
over
Eastern.
I'll be going over Ubuntu 2204, Pop 2204, and
9 a.m. Eastern. I'm still sleeping probably at that point.
Most people are, it's a low thing, but it's fun. But yeah, it's been a very interesting road to get it, and I won't hold up time here and what I've done, but it's been a challenge.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember using Debian when I used it as a daily driver and messing around with SID and trying to get the latest and greatest out of it. So if I'm up, I will try to tune in with my earbuds.
What you got there, Joe?
Ooh.
Ubuntu 2204 on my test laptop with a very old wallpaper from probably when I first started back in 06. So I don't know if you can really see it or not with the glare.
A bit, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I got menus open and everything else. I really don't like this laptop, but I've had it for a while, and so it's.
I got 5 of them around here of different generations.
Well, I've got my Alienware sitting here too. It's got Windows on it, but I'm trying to decide if I want to just wipe it and be done with it.
So I bought an Alienware G515 that had the AMD GPU in it, and I bought it obviously for a very specific reason, so that I didn't have to deal with all the NVIDIA crap that comes along with Linux. And one thing it couldn't do, and I found a GitHub repo for it, I just couldn't get it working, was control of the keyboard, the backlit keyboard. So everything loaded up just fine, multiple distributions, loaded up just fine. But the backlit keyboard required the Windows software in order to change the color and to make sure that it stayed on.
Use OpenRGB. That'll work because I have a Lick keyboard on my desk right now, and that's what I use for it.
I will have to take a look at that. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
See, that's why we have the Linux Saloon, so you can share those little hot tips and tricks.
Hot tips.
We don't share
Well,
them. We don't share them. They don't survive.
That's true.
Well, right.
You know,
Nate, I wanted to, I'd like to come in and say hello to everybody once in a while in this room. So I figured I'd stop by tonight.
I'm super glad you did. And I'm super glad you were the first that said something awesome about OpenSUSE, so it wouldn't have to be me every time. It's kind of nice. Every time Steve complains about his computer, like giving him problems, headaches, whatever, I always like to say, if you're running OpenSUSE, you probably wouldn't have these issues.
I mean, all my pies run Tumbleweed. I have my Dell Latitude runs Tumbleweed. Nate, I'm very involved with OpenSUSE in general. So
yep, I do. I'm well aware.
See, here's the thing about the Alienwares too. Now, granted, it's got its own software to run this, but the front lights, I could with the software that they have, the front lights, I doubt that. I'd be very shocked if OpenRGB recognizes that. Now I know that it gives you a list of what it works with, but you could change sections of the keyboard on here and all this with the Alienware software, and I know you can do the same thing with OpenRGB because I've done it on this. You could do the rainbow effects and all that stuff. I mean, whatever you want.
My Dell Precision laptop, all that lighting of the keyboard is done in the BIOS. You set it in the BIOS the way you want it, and no software whatsoever from an operating system is used.
My Latitude like that, but
That's
not
good.
that there wasn't.
Well, the other thing too, Bill, that Alienware, are you running straight Windows on it, or you have it dual booting?
No, I have it just hit your brights off. We'll fix that later. I had Fedora straight up on it. I don't actually run Windows on any of my machines at home. I'm on my workstations at home at least. So this was, I got it from someone on eBay. The backlit keyboard wouldn't stay on, so I booted into the SD that did have Windows in it. I dual booted it for a very short period of time because I figured it was software driven.
Yeah, because they have if it's a laptop, well, like this one has what they call Alien Command Center. So
Yes.
that's the reason I was asking is if you were able to put a second drive in there. Like this has got a slotted DVD. It doesn't have a pop-out tray, so I took it out, put a caddy in. I've got a second storage drive in there, and it's just a mechanical, but I may change it to an SSD and just put Linux on that side of it and leave this alone. So that would be the other option if you still struggled with it.
Well, unfortunately, the laptop ended up being DOA in the end. I ran it for about 2 days. It wouldn't power on, so I sent it back from where I got it and got a refund for it. I may get another. I may get something different. It just depends. But so Nate.
Yes.
I'm now able to weight bear on that leg that I broke.
Nice.
So I was able to get down to my office and I found a couple more of those Fujitsu laptops. So I'm going to try to resurrect one of those and use that as like my upstairs daily driver to poke around with and see if I can keep working on some of the work you started on that video.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that is actually, it's a Fujitsu T725 for for the cheap seats. It's a great little machine. I think it's a 5th generation or 4th generation. I don't remember what generation it is in there.
Gen i5. Now
Yep.
you got the T725. I had multiple models of those. The facility where I picked those up from had the T725s, and they had another model. You got that one. I have the other. Does yours have the red border to it?
I don't think so.
Okay,
if it does, maybe it's subtle.
All right, so I have the red border to mine, which is the 6th gen i5, and there's some differences in the hardware, but that's kind of like my next like fun project to work on, is to see what I can continue to work on after the upstream bugs are resolved.
Well, what's really great about those machines is I have it set up for my kids' home education room, and so we do a lot of the like the report writing is done on that machine, and it's great for that. And what's really neat to see too, and I kind of touched on this a little bit on Linux Out Loud, but the way the kids interact with the laptop is, or the way my kids interact with technology is way different than how I interacted with at that age, because I had a Commodore 64 at their age, but they use the touchscreen aspect of it, but then sometimes they also use the touchpad and keyboard depending on what activity it is that they're doing. They really like browsing BrickLink. It's a site that you can buy Legos by the piece there from individual sellers and whatnot.
Cool.
And so they like to browse that, and they'll often turn it into like a tablet mode to do that and use a little on-screen keyboard aspect of it. And so like little things like that, it's really interesting to see. But then when they're doing something productive, they'll turn it around into like a regular laptop mode. And so that convertible aspect of it really makes the machine very functional for a variety of interface paradigms. And it's neat to see how well Plasma does handle the different, like the touch aspect of it. It's not perfect, although I haven't seen a perfect touch interface yet, but it does work well.
I did run into issues when I tried Plasma on it. It wouldn't flip the orient. I listened to Linux Out Loud, and I was yelling at my car, saying like, I ran into this when testing when I had it. But I had the same issue with Plasma, and ultimately I ended up running GNOME on it for my own use, just because the automatic screen rotation did work as anticipated without losing the positioning of the touch screen. Because when Neil and I were at my house messing with it, we flipped it 90 degrees, and we said, wait a minute, when you touch something, it's not orienting correctly. It's not changing the touch screen as part of that. And I think he submitted a bug to KDE to get that resolved.
Yeah, the auto rotate doesn't work, although I haven't tested it in a while. I don't know if that's something that is like a sensor that's missing out of the like it doesn't that Plasma doesn't recognize that sensor or something. I don't really know. But yeah, it's very cool. Those are neat machines, and I think it's actually a very well built machine at that.
Those came from a elder care facility, and they were used pretty heavily by the nursing staff. So I figured if they can survive a nursing home, they can survive anything else. Nurses drop their laptops more than students do, and that's not their fault. They're busy saving lives. I'm not worried about a laptop getting dropped,
And it can survive like, spilling a can of Geritol on it too, then apparently.
Exactly.
Is that like Ben Gay, or what is that?
It's Ben Gay stuck between the keys.
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
Hydrocortisone.
Prune juice, whatever they're giving.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's probably a good choice. And I think the fact that you can have the tablet mode is very handy as well, because you can because inputting, checking charts and whatnot. I'm sure that's probably pretty handy with it.
When they first got those machines, I was there when they first started handing those machines out, and the nurses wanted something. And this is, think about it. These are ahead of their time for the hardware that's in them. They wanted to be able to check off the patient's med lists and have their relatives be able to sign documents right there without having to go back and forth. And if you think about how much hardware has changed and input technology has changed over the last 5-6 years, it's really come a long way. And even in the line of work that I do now, the number one request that I get from my clients is how do I sign something digitally without having to use one of these separate. I'm trying to think of the company that makes them. I can't believe I don't remember it. Topaz, that I don't have to carry around a Topaz signature pad. So Linux is making leaps and bounds in being able to provide that touch and sign interface that people need in a productivity environment. You know, all of us, at least I can speak for myself, I manage an IT company, but all of my users use technology in different ways. Maybe some of you here in this room need that, maybe some of you don't, but in that productivity and business environment, having that orientation be able to change so somebody can sign a document and save time is a huge win once that's working right in Linux.
It is interesting to see how much in the last 5-6 years, how much technology, how we're expecting to use our technology has shifted quite a bit. Even in the Linux desktop, I find that what I'm expecting out of my interface is changed dramatically. And a good way to kind of test that is use something old like Windows 95 for just a little bit, and you can actually use an RPM you can download to install it. It's a Java runtime environment of Windows 95. It's pretty fun. Played Minesweeper, it was great. But use it a little bit, and then you realize how much things have just shifted. How much that classic desktop paradigm, although it's still very similar, it's what it does is quite a bit different. A lot of your interaction is quite a bit different as well. So it's good to check on the old stuff from time to time just to see how it feels. It's like once you get used to that infotainment system in your car and you go to an older vehicle and you don't have that, you're like, well, how do I connect my Bluetooth? It's not all cars have Bluetooth, but that's not a real thing. So anyway,
if you want to see me have a bad day, make me fly somewhere and then rent me a car that doesn't have Apple CarPlay in it, and I'm not a happy camper, especially when I'm in Illinois or Michigan or someplace I don't know very well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's for sure.
Honestly, I struggle to tolerate literally any new car, like, because rental companies buy new cars. It's not like they're like 8 years old. Like any new car that doesn't have Android Auto and CarPlay as like a feature built into it, it's just like, what are you doing? Because it just makes it's totally nonsensical. It costs the company more to include their own navigation system and do their own crap than it does to just literally let the phone project. The licensing is cheaper. Like not having CarPlay, that's a bad sign.
So I will say I get routinely frustrated with so I got a Chrysler Pacifica with it's a hybrid thing, and it says that it has the Android Auto, it has the whatever the Apple was it called, Apple CarPlay, AutoPlay, whatever it's called. I find it very frustrating though. Like if I'm driving and someone else who has associated their phone with it, like the phone will like take over the system. So if I'm using the navigation that's built into it, it like messes up my navigation. And I was getting really frustrated, so I just deleted everything Apple out of it so it wouldn't take over the screen. It was starting to make my head go crazy. But I don't actually use that feature as much. Maybe I should try that feature and see if I like it with my Android system. I don't know. I should just see. I do have it play.
The car, though, syncing your own phone to it is like the last time we had a rental, we had an expedition when we went down to Florida, and somebody had synced their phone to it and never took their stuff back out of it. So you had everybody's personal contacts and everything else in there. So that's the downside is you got to make sure that if you do sync your phone, that you're not leaving stuff behind.
Yeah, when I get a rental car, I automatically delete anything in there before I plug it in and then delete it after I get it out.
That's an issue when you take your car and then leave it for repair too.
Yeah. Another benefit of CarPlay, because as soon as you disconnect,
it disconnects. Yep. Yeah. Like, well, yeah. See, if you're pairing with a Bluetooth because like it's your own vehicle and you're syncing it, you don't usually have that option. Or even if I have like mine with a USB, it is just automatically will sync it. So yeah, CarPlay though is different the way it works. Definitely.
I don't mind the built-in navigation, except it interrupts the music to tell me where to turn, and I tried muting it, but it didn't mute, and maybe I just didn't do it right. Maybe it's not intuitive for old man Nate here, I guess, is maybe the problem.
There may be a setting, it's really annoying, but like Android Auto might have a setting for it, or there might be a setting in the Android itself that controls that. Like in Maps, there's a Google Map setting that says like, do not pause music for navigation or whatever. The music app might also have that. Sometimes you have to do both. It's very annoying. But there also might be a separate setting in the car because Android Auto and CarPlay will communicate phone audio, voice assistant audio, and then media audio and navigation audio all on different channels. So it can tell the difference between all of them, and you may be able to set that in the car itself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll just leave my phone at home and solve the problem. There we go.
Well, I'm hoping someday that there's an API that allows something like Sailfish OS or Postmarket OS or Plasma Mobile to be able to have the same functionality in the vehicle that Android Auto and Apple CarPlay have.
There is. It's
Oh.
just a little, there just hasn't been a lot of like implementations, but so it is like it's basically just a projection. So they would have to essentially just send a video feed through with like the touch signaling as well, of just a screen that would make sense on a car. So Android Auto basically just says, you know, like here's this UI for this display, sends it through, and then there's a few like audio channels that it has to manage. It's totally doable in other systems. They would just have to communicate via the same standards.
That's helpful information.
Yeah, that's cool. I like the integration, but I also am slightly frightened by the integration. So it's all kind of a little give and take on that one.
I sold my Mini.
You sold your Mini. What do you
Yeah, I
have
got
now
a
then?
Kia.
So you're driving a
Another-
car that has killed in action on the back of it.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. It's like a big ice cream sandwich too. I got a Kia Soul.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Was that
needed
with the-
something bigger and more practical, but not SUV.
I
That's
got you.
with all the sticker bullet holes on the back of it.
Well,
that would be funny.
I'm finally home and I have to crutch my way into the house now. So I'm going to get settled and elevate my foot for the rest of the evening. Nate, it's a pleasure as always to chat with you, and gentlemen, always a pleasure to chat with you guys. Take care and have a good rest of your week.
Thanks.
You too.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thanks for stopping
Yep.
in.
No problem.
See you, Bill.
Yep. Night, Bill.
Yeah.
Take care.
Welcome, Adam. I see that you have you've popped in, and also Linux Ninja. Welcome. I don't know if Linux Ninja if you can speak or if you're like Snake Eyes and you have to only type only, but I just want to say welcome.
You know, those ninjas never make sounds.
I know they're always quiet. They sneak in.
No, I'm here.
So. Oh, okay.
That's
Oh,
good.
I
Well-
just don't do video in public.
That's understandable. I don't either. I said I would never show my face in Biddle. So
My my work uniform is at work. You know, if I had it on, then I could be on video, the ninja mask and everything.
okay, I got you.
Y'all think I'm joking? Name of my company is Ninja Tech Consulting. My uniform is a ninja outfit.
That's cool.
Cool.
Everybody likes a ninja.
Yeah.
Speaking of ninja, totally side tangent, but does anybody here have Netflix and have watched the Carmen Sandiego cartoon on Netflix?
I have Netflix, but I haven't got to that one yet.
Okay,
I'm
so
one of the many subscribers they lost.
okay. I haven't given up my subscription yet because there's a lot of kids shows that we watch. So, but if the kids stop watching it, off it goes.
They
Yeah,
just
start
released-
Between Disney and Paramount streaming services, Netflix is no longer needed.
I got you.
they just released another season of the Ozark. If you're
Yeah, I
into
never got into that.
show.
I'm not. I don't like anything with violence. And I sound like a namby-pamby, but I don't like anything with like violence or gratuitous violence. I just don't like that. I don't like any kind of horror. Although I do like Stranger Things, so I will see how the next season of Stranger Things goes. And if I'm tired of Netflix after that, like if I just stop using it, then I'll probably, cut that cord, I suppose. Not really cutting a cord, but release that service.
Manifest is kind of like Stranger Things. These people come back off an airplane that's been missing for 5 years. So they're 5 years out of step with time. They get these things called callings that tell them that something's going to happen in the future, and they have to figure it out like a puzzle.
So the what I was going to say, Carmen Sandiego was a game, a computer game from the 1980s, I think 80s, at least 90s for sure.
Geography game, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
So
where in the
Carmen
world?
Sandiego. Yep, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? So the I didn't play the game. I don't remember playing the game very much. I should probably try and dig up a copy of it just to play with my kids because it's fun. The idea of learning geography. So, but Carmen Sandiego, growing up, there was even like a kids show. I think I can't remember what it was, what I saw it on, but was basically the bad guy, right? Like it was the adversary was Carmen Sandiego. So in this rendition of Carmen Sandiego on Netflix, that's fairly new, a few years old. Carmen Sandiego is not the bad guy, but is kind of caught in between the world, like of the good and bad guys a little bit. It's a more complicated story, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, it's a real neat cartoon. My kids like it, and it has actually spurred on discussions about the geographic areas and what makes about different countries and whatnot. So it does still have that educational aspect to it, but just a little bit, but not as overt as it did. And I really enjoy it. So if you do have Netflix and you haven't canceled that service yet, check out the Carmen Sandiego. It's pretty cool. I like it anyway. And also it's a throwback to an old video game. So
They
speaking
need to
of,
make a Zork TV show for the old Zork folks.
oh yeah, they should. I don't know if old was it Infocom game? It was Infocom, right? It was
If you want to
Infocom.
go left, change to channel 5. If you want to go right, change to channel 7.
That would be funny. So there was an interesting episode of Hardware Addicts. I don't know if you listen to Hardware Addicts. It's one of the episodes on Destination Linux Network, one of the podcasts, I should say. And there was the idea. I'm gonna put the let's see, hold on. I'm gonna put a link to the discussion in the YouTube chat. But it was the idea was implants, or okay, the show is called Cyberpunk Yourself with Implantable Tech. And I thought it was a very interesting conversation that Wendy, who is the most important person on the show, and then Michael and Ryan, about the benefits and drawbacks to the idea of implanting technology for various reasons. And I don't know what your thoughts are about implantable technology. I'll just be upfront from my perspective. Not really a fan of the idea of implanting like a chip to identify me. I'm not a fan of that. I too, Linux Ninja, I too am anti-Borg. I don't want to be part of a collective like where it's implanted inside me. But on the other side of it, pacemakers, that is implantable technology. There are hearing aids that some of them are implanted technology. The idea of being able to like restore functionality due to injury through implantable technology does seem very compelling to me. But I personally kind of draw the line on identification and tracking. That's kind of where I draw the line. And so I just wanted to see what some thoughts are on what you might think about the idea of implantable technology. If the business that you worked for wanted you to, instead of have a hard pass, wanted you to implant something like in your skin, would you do that?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it either. Is anybody here that would?
No.
Yeah.
That goes outside the term of bionics.
Well, and if you're talking about implants, I actually have something implanted in my chest. It's about the size of a little dentine gum. It's actually called a loop recorder for my heart. And when I've had my last mini stroke and stuff, they downloaded information from that, which for me, it's valuable,
Right.
So,
It keeps you alive.
Talking about with pacemakers and things like that. So, and yet they monitor through a Wi-Fi device that sits on my nightstand, and I carry a timestamp thing in my pocket and all that. But something like that, I don't have a problem with. But if it comes to like there's talking about the future holds where you'll have a chip and you'll just walk through a cash register with all your groceries and it'll scan everything at once. And, no, I don't, that's getting to be a bit much. Now there are, if you want to say good sides to it, where God forbid, like all these, I hate to say it, child abductions, things like that. If somebody's chipped, it would help maybe save some lives. But, that's the extreme outside of case. Otherwise, I don't like everybody just,
Yeah, if you could chip your kid and at a certain age, then it um,
Yeah.
when they become an adult, don't.
But even adults too.
Then you have those that are caring for Alzheimer's
Yeah.
parents and that they try to take care of them as they can, but they slip away and can't be found. You might.
Yeah, devices. Do you know, Steve, for adults with Alzheimer's that they slip into that goes into their shoes?
Yeah, but what if they were wearing their slippers? Or
But they have to wear. Right. They have to. The thing is, they have to wear them. Yeah.
Right. You can put it on a bracelet, but maybe they can take the bracelet off. To be 100% sure, it has to be implanted. And at that point, you are saving a life because that relative of yours, or if they are that off and you don't want to put them in a home,
Yeah.
you have to be able to do something. In those cases, I could see it, but in most where everybody, because everybody's going to be able to find out where you are, it's bad enough. I mean, you guys, they brought up on the show about these things. We already got that.
That's right.
Very seldom without this. It's
So
part of our lives.
Yeah, that's true. And Shickle, I want to hear what you have to say, because you've been raising your hand a couple of times here, and then taking bites, and then raising your hand again.
So, I would totally do it. I think right now I wouldn't do it, just because, I mean, there's not really a good system for, let's say, replacing it when it dies, or updating, changing things as they age. So right now, not really. I don't have any need to have a little chip in me that identifies me or unlocks a certain door or whatever. But generally, it's gonna happen anyway.
Rolling release.
We sort of just we can push it off, we can kick the can down the road, but stuff like this is happening. That's just that there's so much money being invested into this because it is just useful. Just the more we integrate digitally with everything. And right now where I'm at is that literally everywhere I go, people know where I'm at anyway. If I walk into a store, the store knows I'm there, or they can know I'm there. My phone knows where I am at all times. It knows every single Wi-Fi network around me. It knows every phone in the nearby vicinity around me. It knows, it knows my altitude down to less than a foot of accuracy. That's insane. It knows pretty much everything, right? So, and my car the same way. It has Bluetooth built into it. So I'm just a driving beacon, even if my phone is switched off. We're at a point now where with my phone or with my watch, what I can do is I can go through a checkout at a store. I actually, Sam's Club, I don't know if you know this, but there's an app. You can literally just, through the app, just click all the things that you've got and then just walk out the door. That's it. You don't even have to, or Apple Pay, whatever, where you just click it, done. So all of these things are kind of tied to you anyway. And right now you can get away with not having almost any of them, but it's not really, I think for the majority of people who kind of already have these things, it's not a huge jump at all.
I hear what you're saying. And here's my concerns with that. So if I really need to have something on me that for convenience, and why not make a little a silicon ring, like a wedding band kind of a style. That seems more practical than an intrusive, like a surgery. For Alzheimer's patients, they do have, I think Linux Ninja says they do have lockable bracelets that can't be taken off. So that's one thing.
So I suppose to an extent, wearables does make sense. I think where people would prefer something that is just sort of there and not attached to the outside of the skin comes down to bigger wear and tear, more maintenance, it getting in the way, it not looking a certain way. I think there's just a convenience in, let's say, a lot of times I don't wear my watch as much as I would love to have it, it's super convenient. It does all of these things. It does my calling, it does my texting, it has a GPS on it. It tells me, my family where I'm at all the time. But there's times where like I just can't wear it. It's inconvenient. The same with rings. When I'm in the shop, I just there's no point in me having rings on because they get dirty, they get broken. Just things like that. Like you're not going to be exposing this expensive piece of tech to external conditions the same way that you would something like a ring or a bracelet or whatever.
Yeah, I think my issue is I don't want to be tracked. Like I don't always take my phone with me. I don't always have technology. Like I love technology, but I also don't love technology to it's like who's working for who, and that's my issue. I want my tech to work for me, not me work for my tech. Is where I'm at. And I don't necessarily want, people to so for me it's a security thing. Like I don't know who if I were chipped or whatever, if I couldn't get that out, well no, I would bombard it with some sort of an electric pulse to destroy it. But anyway, I don't trust agencies, whatever they are, could be businesses or government, that they're going to be good stewards of that information. And so I don't really want to be, I have to really trust the organizations, which I don't trust, my phone. I really don't. Very often I'll actually, not tinfoil hat, but, I'll stick it somewhere where it has, I'll shut it off and I'll just go, off. I'll go totally offline and not have anything on me because I don't trust, a lot of things. The other thing.
I think history has broken most people's trust on that issue.
I think so too, and I think for good reason. It's been the trust has been broken, but
Yeah.
But the other thing too is, so you get a piece of tech implanted inside you. Oh, now there's a hardware vulnerability. Great.
Oh,
now
man,
what?
My pacemaker's been hacked.
Right. There's
So-
things like that.
And
And
that's
like
part of the reason, like right now, I wouldn't do it is because if it does break or something's wrong with it, removing them right now isn't particularly convenient. But I'm I'm pretty certain we'll find better ways to like more easily swap out implantable tech.
Oh, I'm sure. I just don't know that it's the idea of like a surgery though to body
Creepy.
modify it's a little on the creepy side, I think. I don't trust any of the tech. Anything that can
That's
run
fair.
code is vulnerable. This is my issue. There's no such thing as a thing that can run code that's not vulnerable, unless it's totally isolated. Colin, what are you gonna say?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to say on this. One thing that impacted my life, I think in the late 80s, I used to work with a guy from Germany, and he used to sit down every day, read the same Bible every day. He must have known that Bible inside out. I'm not a Bible reader, put it out there now. But one day he said to me, if they ever offer to put a chip in your body, don't do it. That was back in the 80s, right? And then come up now in the last 5 years or so, this information has been coming out, and it's quite strange how he told me about that so many years ago. And but I think also you're talking about, if this is the case, you're going to be having a cashless society. Yes, if this comes into play, you're probably more than likely going to be in a cashless society. Would I be not wrong in saying that?
Yep, you're probably right.
Yep.
They're already
And-
going there.
Right. So let's just say the system goes down, you can't pay for something. Let's just say you jaywalked across the road and they said cut his payments off because he did a minor misdemeanor or whatever you call it. What if you drove through a red light and they decided you're a bad person, you don't get money for the next couple of weeks? Well, there's so many other things at play in this scenario, isn't there?
There it is.
Mhm.
And I think there's also counter tech to some of that though too that also exists. So things that I think that have not been really predicted or talked about is, okay, so there is the centralized tech that does exist, centralized, currencies and everything else. But now there's decentralized tech. There's also decentralized currencies. And so in some ways there's a counter culture to some of this tracking and whatnot, which I think is good. It kind of keeps, it's yin and the yang, keep them balanced out, I think, a little bit. Like it's where I don't think all tech is bad, But I think tech that's controlled by a small few, I think that is not good. Which is why I like open source. Which is why I like Linux. Which is why I like, the freedom aspect of it.
That's where you're going with all your major companies now, your Amazon, your Apple, and your Google and all that. These are all big major companies that all got a piece of something in our pockets now to track us, watch what we do, collect data. It's an issue and it's getting worse.
The scary part is I had mentioned this a while back. A couple years ago, I think it is now, my wife and I went to Home Depot to buy a couple of appliances for one of our properties, and they were having their systems going on and off all day. They were having a lot of trouble with it. And they finally got it processed, whatever. And then after we left there, we went to Target. Target couldn't even open a register. Their systems went down. This is nationwide. Target system went down nationwide too, which made me wonder, okay, are they, the hackers testing the side of the systems or whatever? But think about they couldn't process anything. They couldn't pay, they had no override system, nothing. You couldn't do anything. They couldn't even take cash. And that's the part that's the real downside to technology. Now, and I realize this too when you're having a device put in your body, but when it comes down to, it could potentially save your life, I think that's a different story,
Oh,
I agree.
That's a completely different story.
because I mean, it's just, that's where it was with me. And it's just, and the thing is they could, the reality is people could be being chipped when they're in for a surgery for a medical procedure and never even know it, although they should be telling you that stuff. But like you said, we're being monitored. I mean, satellites could probably hear whatever we want to say if they really wanted to now. I mean, it's just, there's no hiding from any of this stuff anymore, so
It's actually been,
it's having it invasive in your body. That's the part that I have an issue with, just for
Right.
reasons of tracking you.
No, so there's also things like Neuralink that I think one of the, like, Elon Musk's company, one of his companies, whatever, they're developing that. And I was listening to an interview. I think it was a TED Talk. This is a week ago or so, and he was basically saying, to help. The idea is for people who have, incredible injuries, and to be able to restore functionality so they can be, less impaired. And I like the altruistic, positive things that can be done with technology, but it seems like, not to quote Spider-Man, but with great power comes great responsibility. And sometimes I wonder if maybe we as a society are not mature enough to even handle the technology we have responsibly. Where it seems like anytime there's a way to control, you have somebody that wants to control people against their will. And I don't know if it seems like that is it's a kind of reoccurring theme that I see pretty often, and so I think that's for me why I wouldn't want to have, a chip or a tracking device more than the phone, which I do elect to have, but not always, with me,
Despite
because
the fact that conceptually I'm on the side of like implantable tech and just that stuff in general. Also, I'm pretty sure like 80% of the study animals in Neuralink like died, and like pretty nastily as well. There's quite a few like because I guess they have to be overseen by animal rights groups and stuff like that. Some of them just killed themselves. Others were just severely infected. It's not going great right now, but but I think as with everything, like there is a state of immaturity, and we're still at the point of understanding how to integrate biological mass with technological mass, and how like we're still learning just even how we work in general. So it's definitely all in its infancy, and like I'm saying, like I definitely wouldn't do it right now or probably even anytime soon. I think uh, we're at the point where it's like, well, we're gonna figure it out, and we're going to get to a point where like it makes it makes sense to do, rather than it just being like a huge risk to do. As for like privacy and security things, that's definitely a big issue. Um, but yeah, I think right now it's just kind of like the only way to learn is to do.
I get
Yeah.
total Ghost in the Shell vibes every time I think about Neuralink.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
I'm
and
gonna
I think
post a link for that.
I think that the idea behind Neuralink in it is a positive one to help propel us to, you know, the next level or whatever. But but I think the problem though again is the individual maturity of those that do achieve power in our hierarchical system. And I think that some people don't know how to wield power responsibly, and some people don't. I mean, some people don't have the ability to wield, you know, their own checkbook responsibly. People don't use checkbooks anymore. Their own, you know, bank accounts responsibly, and so there's and some of those people, you know, end up in positions of power. And so just little things like that, like which for me is why I wouldn't trust such a thing. But
I still use a checkbook.
well, I do too, because some things just require checkbooks.
Right.
I have like the same set. I don't think I've had new checks
I
in
don't
like
like
6
getting
years.
roped into this auto pay thing where these companies want you to fork over your bank account information. So every month they can pluck a fee out of you.
Don't do it.
Pluck, you know, don't
Don't give anyone
what-
access to your checking account.
once you
Use
do
your-
that,
use
it's
your
hard to
bank's-
reel it back in.
Yeah, use your bank's
It's
bill
true.
pay service. The bill
Yep.
pay service is writing a check. And
Mhm.
you say you have checkbooks. I don't have a checkbook, but I can use my app on my phone to go to my bank and I can write you a check right there and it'll get mailed to you. If you don't get it, then I've got a guarantee that removes any late fees or liabilities from me, and the check paying service will eat those for me on my behalf. And we just had that happen. We sent a check for several $100s to someone that said they never got it. And so we just call up the company that handles our check writing and they just make it right. Whatever late fees, whatever, you know, negative consequences happen due to that check not getting there and getting cashed, it's not on us.
Yeah, that's what I do. I don't do any auto pay for anything. I use the bill pay as well.
Also, don't trust any individual account because, you know, bad things do happen. Your account number can get out there. I don't leave a lot of money sitting in any one account. I spread it out. I've had phone calls from my bank that said, "Hey, are you at the Walmart in Lawrenceville right now, getting gas?" I'm like, "No, I'm on the other side of Atlanta." Well, someone's using your debit card over there right now to get gas. I'm like, "Well, it ain't me." And you know, they'll shut the card off. It takes 3 days to get a replacement card. If that's your only account, you're kind of hosed for 3 days. So
Yeah.
It's true.
that's why I have multiple accounts with different cards, so I can just move all my money from one account that's got a problem to one that's not having a problem and still be able to function.
Also, get yourself a bank that lets you just like literally access all the card information without having the physical card. Like anytime I just pull up my virtual card and I can use that anywhere, and then I can recreate a different one anytime I need to. Like that's a really handy feature to have.
That is handy.
Yeah,
I
I've got
use-
privacy.com, but there's a delay though because they poll your account for its balance if you've got it tied to ACH once every 24 hours. Well, the account they're polling, I don't leave money in. Only put money in it when I need it.
Mhm.
So you can never use it because every time they pull the account, they see there's only one penny there. So it won't authorize. So you wind up having to tie something like that to an actual card.
I just
If you
use
tie it,
I use One Finance because they have like a super easy virtual card and pocket management system.
Yeah, you
yeah,
can
I
use
wish more
Cash App
banks
for
would do
that
it.
too.
Yeah, I won't touch that.
Cash App
So-
is pretty handy for me to use. I was just
Nope.
when I was off
touch
here,
it.
I went AFK. I went to the liquor store and I didn't have cash on I didn't have my other card. But I had my cash card in my phone and I just banged in my PIN number and I paid for my stuff.
It's nice.
Yeah, I
So-
won't touch Cash App or Zelle or any of that. Those third-party services, because of where I used to work, I know how all this stuff works on the back end. The reason that those apps are free or nearly free is because of the data that they're gathering about you and your purchase habits, and that information is all being sent to people who are paying for that data. That's why you're not paying for the service.
Yeah.
I will say I like to use cash as much as possible. I still think cash is king. And I live in like small town USA, really. And so a lot of things, you know, I mean, it's only been in the last few years that every place actually takes cards around me. And so, and actually it's not even 100% yet. So I know I kind of like, yeah, I like, I don't know, not having to always do everything on the, electronically.
There's
I've
several places around here that
avoided
are cash only.
businesses that like don't take Apple Pay. Like if a place doesn't have Apple Pay, I just won't even eat there. It doesn't not important enough to me.
Yeah, if
Like
they don't
I
take
can't
Apple
just
Pay, I thank them. Thank you.
Me too. They got a customer for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, 'cause,
like
you can
my
always
barber
take
shop is
cash.
cash only. I go get a haircut. There's no other way to pay. You either
Yeah.
hand
Oh,
cash
yeah,
or
yeah,
you're
the
walking out
barbers.
with long hair.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
not put no financial anything on my phone.
Yeah, I have no,
That's a fair call.
I have no financial, like, well, I do have my bank app because I need it for, like, they do like a security key thing there, so I can't access it through the website unless I have the security
Mm.
thing there. So I have to have it, which I don't like, but whatever. What can you do?
There's a lot of places that for parking, it's cash only. If you are illegally parked somewhere and you get your car towed, these towing companies to get your car out, 150, 250 bucks cash only.
Hmm.
So if you're stuck somewhere and you don't have cash on you, you're really stuck somewhere now. So
Well, it's
have
not
some
that I
cash
don't
on
have
you.
cash. I'm just not gonna I'm not gonna spend cash where I don't need to. Like for me, it's more so just kind of like every time I spend something, like I can log it, track it. I know how much I spent where, and I don't have to write it down. It's like, oh, I spent this much from this account here, and like at the end of the month, I have a clear image of like all my budgeting stuff, no matter which card I used or what I did. Like
That's a
it's
good
literally
point.
it's just
And
super easy
and
to know
also,
exactly what I'm up to.
if you get mugged and they steal your cards, not a big deal. But if you get mugged and they steal your cash, that's kind of a
It's
big
just
deal.
gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just gone.
It's
So
like
there's,
so
I mean,
I
there's,
carry cash, just not very much of it.
yeah.
I carry something specifically for the mugger, so I'm not too worried about that.
That's not a bad idea, actually. Like, here you go.
I find I can get a lot more things done a lot easier around here and a lot cheaper with cash.
Mhm.
Because people really don't want to deal with credit cards, and they have to pay to receive the credit card and get their funds from your card.
Yeah.
Like the guy that cuts my lawn, it's 25 bucks for people that use around here a card for their lawn. For me, I pay him cash. I charges me 20 bucks.
Yep.
I had a plumber give me a great deal on some extra work I needed done while he was there because I offered him cash. And if we had to
I
go
got a
back through
deal
his
on a hot
company,
water heater.
if we had to write up a work order and all that, it was going to cost a lot more, and I was going to have to wait several days. But hey, while you're here, here's 80 bucks. Can you take care of that? Done.
Mm-hmm.
Buying a car in cash too.
Don't ever buy a car in cash. That's a dumb move.
The depreciating asset. Just buy the whole thing though.
No, I'm saying don't use cash to pay for a car because you pay more.
I've
Not always.
I've
Depends
paid
on the dealership.
Well, not from a dealer, but like from a private seller, I've paid cash for cars.
Mm.
Watch out for civil asset forfeiture if you're carrying large amounts of cash on you too. Like there are many stories of people with $5,000 on them on the way to go buy a car, and for some reason they get pulled over. And one of the questions cops will ask is, "Do you have any large amounts of cash on you?" "Oh yeah, okay, we'll hand it over," and they'll just seize it, and you don't have to be charged with anything. But now you've got to sue them and spend even more than that to try to get it back, and it takes years.
Yeah, that would be a problem. I don't know that it's happened around here very much, but I'm sure it would happen. Even like if you have too many like singles, that's a problem too, I guess.
I once had to like answer a very long list of questions when making a very large withdrawal from a bank because apparently it's suspicious. And so they apparently they have people that like are there just to like make sure you're not being like held hostage or whatever by someone for cash. Like if you go to the bank and you pull out like $20,000 all at once, they don't like it at all.
Well, that's also a thing for people who get scammed when the fake tech people call you. They target elderly people, and if you go to scammer payback on YouTube, you'll learn all about that. And people will send like $30,000 in cash.
At my store.
Kitboga too. Yeah, your bank's trying to protect you in some ways. There's also reporting requirements. Any single transaction, in excess of a certain dollar amount has to be reported to the Treasury Department on a form by the bank.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny too. Like every time I ship something now, like every time I've gone recently, they ask, they're like, "Are you shipping any cash?" And I'm just kind of like, at the first time I was like, "Do people do that? That seems inconvenient because you can
Yes,
send
people do
money
that.
so many ways."
Mhm.
But I thought it was illegal. That's why I was like, "Why would anybody do that? It just seems dumb. It's gonna get lost." But apparently that's a big thing. Mail in scam cash.
Yep, they wrap it in like tinfoil or Mylar or something, and what it does is it doesn't allow anyone to see what's inside of it
Mm,
Or you
when they.
ship a hardcover book, third class, and you put monetary bills in between the pages.
nice.
I should be sharing these kind of secrets there.
This is cool.
I
That's
don't
just
get
that's how they do. That's just how
Oh.
they do it. This is educational, right?
Yeah.
I
We've
suppose
talked
so.
about piracy and all kinds of things here. You know,
So I used to work at I used to attend bar. This was years ago, and it's like a small town dive bar, and it was cash only. It was fine, you know, but like the register was also like really old. Everything about the place was really old, and I kind of liked it. It was kind of charming, but some people just they didn't have cash. There was an ATM that they could pull cash out of there as well, but there's something nice about the instant transaction of cash because it's way more instant. You know, as far as you have it now, you have it immediately. But there's also for a balance too. There's some insecurity in that as well. I would say so. Like there's risk in cash and there's risk in digital. I see, very clearly, and I don't necessarily like the idea of that kind of bothers me that you could have like large assets taken away from you. Because if you're going to go buy a car for $6,000, which is what I spent for my truck, I did have it on cash in me. I don't know if that's I don't know if that'd be enough to get that taken away or not. That does seem it does seem like that's almost too much power than that the law enforcement has if they could take away 6 or 10 grand because you might be buying a car.
Yeah, there's a big push to get the law changed to take that ability away. But I hear tipping strippers is still an all cash business.
Mhm.
I
Some
suppose
take,
So
Apple
you
Pay.
are truly a mixologist of this Linux Saloon then.
I am. Yeah, I had
Hey.
a lot of fun doing it. I would bring in little bits of like technology for show and tell when I was doing this too.
Mhm.
So like I did like I replaced the touchpad on a laptop, and so I brought it in and would ask people, what do you think this is? And they would have they'd guess, and
Yeah.
it was kind of
I just
fun.
thought of
Well, you're now
perfect
going to start
justification.
doing those.
For one day.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say.
What'd you say,
Go ahead.
Chico?
Oh, sorry. I just thought of the perfect justification for implantable tech, and that's so that way everybody can accept Apple Pay.
Well, think about it. You got all these cards that you tap, and if you walk by somebody could scan you now, unless you have those wallets that block them and all that too.
Everybody should have a RFID blocking wallet if they've got any wireless cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any wireless cards,
Do
thankfully.
they make non-wireless cards anymore?
I don't have a wireless card.
I still
Yeah,
have cards that are not wireless.
Huh.
They ship when they ship the new credit cards now. I didn't even know that there was a wireless, the ability to do that tap thing.
Yeah.
And my wife and I or I think it was my wife and I, or maybe my daughter, we were at Red Robin over here. Went to go pay the bill. They have these things sitting on the tables now. You just scan it, whatever. And I went to go put it up there, and I'm going, why is this thing that it's going to the next window? I didn't, didn't or insert it or whatever. And here I didn't realize it sensed the card when I got it up there.
Yeah, well, that's NFC, and NFC, you have to be really close.
I wasn't as close as you. I just held it up like this.
It's a
was
few
like,
inches. And
yeah.
I like the phone pay, Android phone, Google Pay. There's some anonymity there from the merchant's point of view, but not from Google's point of view.
Yeah.
I like just being able to pull my phone out and unlock it and then tap it and pay. And I'm kind of sneaky if I'm at like a Dunkin' Donuts and there's cops in there, and there's always cops in there, but when they get up there and order theirs, I'll just reach up and tap my phone to the register, and it pays for it instantly, and they can't stop me.
That's great.
Yeah, so implantable technology. It already exists. It's here, and I think that there's definitely uses for it. I just don't know that I want to subscribe to it for a convenience and tracking purpose. I don't want to be identified by my tech, I guess.
No.
I even have a problem with the idea, like, this is a long time. This is even in the 90s. if you went to like Disney World and you'd get the hopper pass, you would have to give your biometrics as well, so that they wouldn't like you
I
have to
just
use
went
like
through
two
that.
fingers. Oh, you did, okay.
Yep.
And
Yeah, you get one of those passes, and it's good for either that park all day. They got different levels where you know park hopper, and what they're afraid of is that you'll go to a park and enjoy part of the day, and then when you leave, you would give your pass to someone else so they could go for another part of the day, and they want to prevent that. They want to make sure everybody's got their own paid pass. So you go in the gate, and it ties the pass you have that you scan to your fingerprint. So if you want to re-enter with that same pass, the fingerprint has to match, or you have to jump through hoops. And nobody was putting their finger on the thing. Everybody was giving them the knuckle.
you know, I was thinking that almost seems. I mean, I understand why they're doing that because they want to get that. You know, it's expensive going to Disney World, but
Well, there's a market for those things. When you only go for part of the day, there's a market where you can sell that pass to someone else for them to reuse it, and they were trying to cut that out.
I got you. I guess I understand it, but like it seems like, you know, grandpa's tired. He doesn't want to, you know, he can't handle any more Epcot Center because it's just, you know, too much, you know, too many countries to visit in a day. So, you know, so grandma goes for the second half of the day, you know, something like that. It seems reasonable, but yeah, I don't know.
Is that the excuse that Disney's using, just like Netflix saying that, you know, their subscription,
down.
their
Yeah.
thing is why they're cracking down on you know, they're not making as much revenue because people are password sharing.
They're not making as much revenue. It's probably not because of password sharing. It's just probably because of bad content, really.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. I'm being trying to
Yeah.
be facetious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
some
a
of
word
the
there.
content is getting
Facetious.
pretty raunchy.
Yeah, it's just, well, you know, they lost the creativity. It happens. Hopefully they'll recover, start being creative again. I can't hear you, Shickle. I think you're muted somewhere else.
I've had my Netflix account compromised so many times, and finally figured out why. They changed their API, and hackers figured out how to go into the old API that was no longer advertised, and were able to generate a token off of an account. And it was complicated, but there was nothing you could do to lock your account down. You could change your password, you could change your email address, you could change whatever you want to, but the hackers had generated a token tied to your account that allowed them to always get in. So there were people in Mexico watching Netflix on my account, and no way to get them out because my language kept getting changed to Spanish. And I could see my watch history of all these programs I'd never heard of that were in Spanish. And finally have to call Netflix up and say, hey, what's going on? Yeah, you've got one of the original accounts that still has this tokenization thing. We're gonna have to kill your account. You have to go start a new one. Oh, okay, great, thanks.
That's
you
pretty
guys,
wild.
any Netflix people watch the Atom Project? Because that was really good.
That's next on my list.
I recommend it. It's good. Also, Formula One, Drive to Survive on Netflix, season whatever, really good.
You know, there's some underrated car shows that have been on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
There was one that had people from all over the world that it was like some poor chick from Africa that had a beater BMW all hot rodded out with us.
Yes.
And then all the way up to a guy that was like a millionaire with a Lamborghini, and he had his crew redo the all-wheel drivetrain to where he could flip a switch and go into two-wheel instead of all-wheel.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it, but I think there was only one season, and they had a course where you had to go through all kinds of different turns and corners and things. And one of the obstacles was a bridge where you had to drive up, and then the weight of the car would cause the bridge to start going, and you had to then balance the bridge. And they had like a crew guy down on the ground who could see the bridge and coach you back and forth, and you had to balance the bridge in between two marks for a certain amount of time and then go while trying to keep your time on the track. And it was one car at a time.
That's why they make manual transmissions.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget the name of that show. It was really cool, but there was another one where they did drag racing with people like that. That was everything from a dude that was in a wheelchair, and he built this T-bucket rat rod that had like maybe two or three gears in it, and that was it. And he ended up into the finals with like 12 other people, and each season is, they go through an elimination round, and then at the end of per episode, and then at the end of the season is the final. There's like 12 people, 6 or 12 people, I forget how many, but the one episode they were out on salt flats, and there was some big twin diesel truck that somebody had put together. It was most of these cars are street legal too, but
just barely.
yeah, they're like sleepers. They call them
Yeah.
sleepers. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So
Great car shows on Netflix.
I'm still upset that I just spent 60 grand on a truck that has 4x4 and it didn't snow this winter, so I didn't get to use it.
Oh no.
Oh no.
That's okay though. When the rains come, go mudding.
No, it's a white truck. I'm not going mudding.
Oh yeah. Yeah, never mind. Oh. That's why things are so
it'll
peaceful.
wash off.
It'll wash off.
Buff right out.
The buff right out. That's right. Some of the shows I really liked on Netflix were like The Toys That Made Us. That was a really good series.
That was so good.
Yes.
And there's also another one. I was like, I want to say it was like the cartoons or something else. It was another series like that I thought was really quite good.
Big nostalgia trip.
Yeah, there's a video game one they did too that was really, I thought was pretty good as well.
Yeah,
I'm finding a lot of that sort of content long form on YouTube. I don't know if it's specific to YouTube Premium or YouTube Red, but there's a lot of like BBS documentary sort of stuff. Old censored and banned cartoons, things that ran in the 30s that you can't run today, pre-World War II stuff. I spent a lot of time watching that and kind of seeing, what was in the theaters when my granddad used to go on Saturdays and pay a nickel and sit there all day and watch these black and white silent things with the music playing in the background. Like, what was his life like when he was 18, 19 years old?
Man, I bet the cars smelled so much better then.
What? The donkey?
The cars.
No, they didn't have cars.
Yeah.
Well, so my granddad talked about how he got to town. You would find a wagon headed down the dirt road. You just jump on the tailgate, and you just ride on the back into town, and then try to find your same way home because nobody had a car where he grew up.
It was all if you did that now, you'd
mules.
Probably get in a fight.
Well, what they called tailgating back then was when one of these wagons or carts or whatever was headed somewhere. Everybody was coming out of their house, jumping up on the tailgate, and it was a party because the tailgate would get full because everybody's kind of hitching a ride. And if you were the one driving, you didn't care, right? The mule would still pull the cart. Didn't matter how many people were on the back. But it's a great way to meet people.
That's wild. I got to start jumping in people's cars.
Just the tailgate. Say what? I'll drive by. I'll leave my tailgate down for you.
I'll jump in. That is so cool.
I have an old Ford F350 2001, and the bed is kind of rusting out. I live in Michigan, so on a quiet night you can hear a Ford rusting. It's just the way it works.
It's the same with a Chevy. I got one too.
And I want to replace the bed on it. I just haven't taken the time to do that. And someone said, well, you should put like a wood flatbed on there. And I said, I can't do that. That's way too expensive. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, then I got to get the bales of hay and the banjo player on the back that hangs out there. And I can't afford a banjo player full time as I drive around. Yeah.
No, you can borrow one. You can borrow one from down here.
Rusty truck.
We've got plenty of banjo players down here that'll be happy to come help out.
Before you do that, crawl under it and make sure that the brake lines aren't all rusted out and the gas lines aren't going and stuff like that. My cousin's
I've replaced all that.
Well, then you're good to go.
Are they replaced with like crazy straws? It's just like a massive like loop-de-loop of like crazy tubes. That'd be amazing.
We've got junkyards down here that you may want to come visit. They've got old ambulance bodies that you can put on the back of your truck. They've got cabinetry in them. So we actually got one for the ham radio club and refitted it with radios and antennas, and then set it up as a trailer so it's towable to an emergency disaster.
That's legit.
But it's dirt cheap to pick up an ambulance body out of a junkyard, and they're usually still in pretty good shape. It's the engine that the transmission that's the problem, but the body's usually pretty good. You can stick that on the back of anything.
want to see like a want to see a really big truck just kind of converted into like a truck-sized smart car where the bed's just completely gone and they move the wheels up to like where the cabin is.
Oh, you mean the Kia Soul?
Yeah, that. True.
I drive one.
Same. Oh yeah, pretty much is actually. It kinda
It's
looks like that.
It's a truck. It's a quad cab with no bed.
That is true.
You know, those are actually, if you have a fifth wheel on there, those are in pretty high demand right now because there's such a lack of trucks and drivers for hauling things. At least in this area, I live in not too far from the RV manufacturing headquarters of the world, I think. So lot of, they always need people to drive, you know, haul trailers or whatever around.
I saw an F-350 diesel going down the road with a gooseneck trailer, and on that trailer was a shipping container strapped down.
That is
recently.
horrific.
I was like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. This guy's making money. Somebody said, you know what? Do it here.
You know, if you can have shipping container compatibility on your vehicle, you are the richest person in that town right now.
Mm-hmm. If you have shipping container of availability, and someone will come get them for you.
That's true.
I know a person who got a shipping container and turned it into a chicken coop. And it's probably the most impressive chicken coop I've ever seen.
I know where I'm going when the fallout happens, because that's the only thing going to be standing with food.
Shipping containers everywhere.
Then Arizona, they made in Arizona, close to where my sister lives, there was a complex that was being built with shipping containers.
Mm-hmm.
And when all the stuff went down in the last couple of years, they had to completely stop it. But there's also a guy who had bought a bunch of them and stacked them, and it's on one corner of it's on a corner lot, and it's like a 3-story house made of shipping containers, and he's painting them. That's pretty dope.
So cool.
Is Google still building their data centers out of shipping containers?
Yes.
I don't know.
I know Microsoft was looking at submersible containers where they were using seawater for cooling and just submersing the entire data center, offshore, running cables onshore.
Really well.
What were you about to say, Shickle? Sorry, we all kind of ran you over.
No, you're good. There's like a slight delay between the video and like the AirPods, so I'm like, I got you. We have a place here called the Boxed Yard, and it's like I don't know, I'd say maybe like 30-40 shipping containers. It's downtown, and there's a couple of stories, but it's all made out of shipping containers, and there's a big patio area, and like there's really cool stuff, but it's like a bunch of little restaurants in this little area, all like within shipping containers, and like the balcony is like there's like shipping containers at like different like levels and angles, so like there's like little balconies on top of them, and you can go in them and see out of them.
Don't them things get really hot in the sunlight?
No hotter than any other box.
I mean, they've got AC in them, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can put the whirlybirds on them too, because there's a place next door to us got the whirlybirds that extracts the heat from them. So I don't know how well it works.
I've never heard them called that, but I love that. I love that so much.
And it's not hard to insulate. The shipping containers are kind of like corrugated tin cans. They've got all kinds of shape to them and depth on the walls alone, and people just fill them. There's that foam. That's you get the foam in the can. Yeah, it's like Cheese Whiz, but they do an industrial version of it on walls.
Industrial Cheese
Whiz. No, it's not. It's pretty much the same stuff.
It's pretty much the same stuff they put inside refrigerators too.
Yeah.
The gaps.
I think it became very popular with the shipping containers because I think there was so many that they didn't know what to do with. So I think people started building houses with them and all sorts of things, really.
Who even makes shipping containers?
People.
Then I think
robots.
They're made in China. There a lot of things, a lot of stuff we ship out, like skateboards. They cut down Canadian hard rock maple and send them to China to sell them to skater kids in LA or wherever. Kansas.
Yeah. I just want to say, hey, thanks Daniel Yount for the I think I said right, correct, Daniel Yount for the super chat for all the fish. I'm not sure what fish, like Swedish fish, but you're very welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Now I did want to before it gets too late here and we haven't talked about any like Linuxy direct things. Now I don't know if you are all aware, but Ubuntu has released 2204 LTS, and
No
with that,
way.
I know, right? Maybe
Who
you've
let
heard.
out that secret?
Huge. So there's been a lot of different releases. So like Pop OS, 2204 LTS was released. There was one of the highlights from there is they have Pulse. Pipewire is now a thing, so that's pretty cool. The remixes, Unity and Cinnamon are out there now too. So I don't know if anybody wants to try the Unity. I think that's pretty cool. I'm thinking in a near next distro exploration, I really would like to do the Ubuntu's. I think the Unity would be a fun remix to do. I'm just thinking for me and my selfishness. But is anybody here excited about the Ubuntu releases? Have they installed the latest Ubuntu? I think what you said you did, Joe, right?
Oh yeah, I installed it.
Yep. And how what's your impression like?
It's what is prompting me to completely dump all Ubuntu from my entire environment and go looking at Fedora.
Really? That good, huh?
So I did an upgrade from 2110 to 2204, and the first horrible thing I noticed is they, without asking or prompting, uninstalled my Firefox.
That would be an issue.
And then replaced it with a snap. I'm like, well, I'm not allowed to have snaps at work because we're in an isolated environment. We can't get to the snap store. We have to have everything pulled from an internal repository. So we have the Ubuntu repositories mirrored in our own deb repositories, and they're all scanned with our own security tools. And because snaps are external, third party only, you can't host them yourself. They're verboten. So we can't even install Firefox, and some of our applications require Firefox. So it entirely broke everything. So now we're looking at just
other options,
figuring out how to get Ubuntu out of our environment.
Yeah, but again, that's not just a Ubuntu thing. That's Mozilla went to them too. Mozilla wanted a snap because they wanted to go into the Flatpak. They wanted.
Well, Mozilla never offered a deb to begin with.
You know what I use for Firefox? They do make a tarball all-in-one package where you just unzip it and it's Firefox. You run Firefox from the terminal or make a .desktop file to trigger it in your menu, and it's done.
Well, it's funny. The other distros do not have this problem. It's only Ubuntu that's doing this. I run Arch. I can install Firefox. I can pull down the package build. I can compile Firefox from source and create my own package. If I can do this, and I don't know anything about building Firefox, I just pull it down and hit go. I don't understand why Mozilla themselves, who create Firefox, can't get off their butts and have a native package that we all expect.
They do. They have an all-in-one tarball package. All is required is you to unzip it and open it up into a folder, and it runs.
Yep.
You just
and all they've got to do is turn that into a deb and allow me to run it through my repo scanner and put it in my repo, and then I can install it. But they don't.
So if you do end up needing to stick with Ubuntu, you can actually host your own snap repositories. There are a few third-party snap repositories.
I don't believe that's my burden to bear. I think,
no, not at all. But I'm just saying, like, if you have to, there's.
I'm taking the initiative at our company. I'm making, since I'm the engineer on our project, I'm making the decision. We were going to go forward with our new cloud product based on Ubuntu. We were going to look at 2204 to run our entire infrastructure on. I've now made the decision that we're not doing it. We are now looking at Red Hat. Looks like we're going to be running RHEL.
Nice.
Also have 2 applications in with Red Hat, so we'll see how that goes.
So my question for you then is could you do Flatpak within the system that you do?
Flatpak doesn't work for servers. It only works for GUIs.
Well, I'm saying
you can't use a Flatpak on a headless system.
Right, but well, then why would you need Firefox then?
Because our desktop work environment needs to match our server environment to have a single cohesive ecostructure. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to run one distro on my workstation to test things out, and then run an entirely different distribution in production where I'm putting all the stuff that I'm testing. That makes no sense.
I got you.
So the only difference is your servers are headless and your work environment has a DE, so you can, for ease of use.
Yeah, we're developing on our workstation, and then we deploy to production in the cloud. So we're going to go to AWS. That's where we're building.
I got you. Interesting. Well, that's some interesting information there. You know, everyone has different use cases for what they do, and I think that it makes sense.
Well, I can give you history as to how we got here, and I don't know if the average home user even thinks about this, but you know, projects come and go. Companies start up and shut down. Things that you depend on to run your company are often the functions and uptime of other companies, and you want to limit that as best you can. So one of my requirements that I enforce is that everything that we need for our company to survive needs to be in-house, needs to be maintained by us. We don't need any third-party dependencies. I don't want to depend on Docker Hub being there. I don't want to depend on NPM external repos to be up and available. I want to be able to build our software and deploy to prod as long as we are up and the cloud we're deploying to is up. Everything's got to be in our own internal repositories, scanned with our own security tools. And if I need to rebuild something, like to say patch, I don't need to run into a situation where, well, that thing that I'm needing to patch, well, it's 3 versions old and it's no longer available on the internet. No, actually, it's in my own internal repository, so I can still patch and rebuild that piece of software that my customer still relies on. And when I look at who our customers are, my customers are the Pentagon and Google and other large companies. We can't screw this up. We've got to make sure that we're as dependable, within our own 4 walls as we can be. And just because some other company went out of business, that should not endanger our product from being able to be built and released.
Nope, that makes total sense.
Fair enough.
That's why we can't depend on Snap.
Right. It's understandable. Different. It's your use case is not compatible with that. Well, there's some other news topics I want to get to, but we are right at the end of our time here. And so next week we have is an application appetizer. So I'd like to see if there's any applications that you think that maybe we should put on the menu for next week to maybe try. Is there anything in particular that might interest you? Anything that jumps out? So some things like on the list, VeraCrypt is something that was suggested. There's Draw.io desktop. I'm not sure what that is. Somebody know what that is? It was suggested.
Yep. And VeraCrypt, I think, has compatibility built into Lux. I think Lux can open VeraCrypt, TrueCrypt, so it's native to Linux.
Okay. And then another one is Vim or Vim Tutor. I guess those are in every repo. Like do everything in Vim or something like that. Now I'm open to suggestions. I just said these are some things I threw out there. So please, Shickle, what is your suggestion?
So it's like kind of mixed because it's not just Linux, but it's also like mobile and stuff. So I've been using Mastodon a lot more lately, and normally like I try it and I'm like, this is cool, but then I don't use it. But there's been so much growth there lately and so much more work done on that. They now have an official Twitter client. Or wow, that's kind of funny. That's awkward. Oops, whoopsie. They're not going to pay me now. So now they have an official iOS and Android app rather
Mastodon?
than like the third-party client. Yeah,
Okay.
so they were relying on third-party clients for stuff like that. But there's also there's apps on like the Linux desktop, and I forgot what it was called. But it's kind of like Corebird. I forgot what it's called. I think it was Tuscadon or something, or Toot, something like that.
Toot. I remember Toot.
Toot. Yeah. So they have like desktop clients as well. So there's a bunch of different clients for it. But yeah, that would be kind of cool.
So I am on Mastodon. I use it pretty regularly. I like the whole federated idea. There's not a whole lot of like vintage tech enthusiasts on Mastodon, so there's not a whole lot there for me in that area. So I'm more in the Twitter sphere for that. But although I have to say, from my personal experience, I've never had a bad Twitter experience because I only follow things that make me happy. I don't follow things that don't make me happy, and I filter out all these anything that's trending. So that I see nothing that's trending, and I don't. So I see happiness. no, this guy was irritating, but happiness, happiness, happiness. So I won't say who I see who was irritating on there, but yeah, I mean, so I filter my I guess I make a little bit of an echo chamber for myself, because I just follow the things that I find interesting. I use Twitter as an escape, if that's a strange thing, but maybe that's.
I just go there
contrary
if
to
I'm
most
too
people.
happy and I need a little bit of depression in my life.
Okay. See, it's the opposite for
Calms
me,
me.
because like I get to see, like, you know, some of my favorite people who I enjoy like watching on the YouTubes. They have, you know, they kind of tweet out some of their current projects, like, and there's really cool like retro projects people are doing that I think that are just, you know, I enjoy, and so that's all I see, and so there's nothing out there that you know that makes me angry. I don't
That's really
follow
what
it.
it's designed for.
If I'm gonna call in the customer service and I need to pre-build up some anger, I'll just go spend 5 minutes on Twitter, and now I'm ready.
Well, that's fair. Yeah.
I put a
guess-
suggestion in chat, Matrix home servers for anyone thinking about running their own, some stuff you might want to know.
A Matrix home server. That sounds like a little bit more than an appetizer. That sounds like a whole like 3-course meal or 5-course
Yeah,
meal.
It's not that bad.
All right. So actually, I want to keep that suggestion because I think that might be kind of fun to do. I've done some like some Matrixy things, as far as like using it as an intermediary for my SMS. So I used Matrix to send text messages.
Well, that's
So
cool.
but I couldn't do group messages on it, so that wouldn't work.
I was watching Josh from Keep It Techie yesterday. He was doing a
Okay.
video on Shotwell, and I've only used it, I think, if it's come default with distros, but I've never really looked too far into it, and it's quite an interesting application if you want to add that to the list, because it had a lot more features than what I expected, to be honest.
Shotwell?
Great.
Yeah,
app.
it's an image editor.
Shotwell, yeah.
It's
That
it's
was
a
the-
GNOME. It's a GNOME.
That was
app.
the target of the patent troll against the GNOME Foundation a while back that
Right.
just had their
Okay.
patents
Ooh.
invalidated. So that patent troll got those patents yanked. They can't sue anybody else anymore.
That's good.
Amazing.
So what? I mean, that Shotwell sounds interesting because I've never actually tried it, and that might be an interesting one since it did go through all that hardship some time ago. I'm
Right.
cool with that. Is there any other suggestions? I do like the idea of a home Matrix server. Yes, Joe, please.
GNU Cache. It's something that I'm going to start playing with myself.
So that's actually one I've used historically. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just did.
No,
But I'm that's a great application, and I think, but I've actually recently switched to using Scrooge, which is another one. So it's a Qt based application. I like the interface a little bit better.
what I'd be
but-
interested to know is if anybody out there, I know of one company up, they called me a couple years ago. I know there's a company up in a couple towns north of me that uses it exclusively. My curiosity would be is how their accountants deal with it. You know, typically with my QuickBooks, I just basically download my, backup to my flash drive, bring it in, they restore it, they look at it, they make whatever changes, give it back, boom, and I make the changes here. And I know that GNU Cache is supposed to be able to import into a Firefox, I got Firefox on the brain now, a QuickBooks extension that be able to be opened up in that. I just would be, because I don't know what version, because the problem I'm running into now is I have a 2015 version of QuickBooks, and we had switched accountants, and he had to go scramble to try to find a machine to be able to do that. He was able to open up in a newer version, but if he had done a backup for me, I couldn't open it in this. And
Gotcha.
I'm not about subscriptions, and that's where they're at now with QuickBooks, and it's right now it's $350 to $400 a year, for that. And plus, I don't like having that stuff floating out there. So
Get in touch with me, Joe. Might be able to help you out.
Is that something we should add to the list, though? Maybe Scrooge or GNU Cache to have a look at, or is it,
I've
is that
kind of
like-
already looked at GNU Cache. It's more business orientated software.
yeah, home bank is one more third personal. Yeah.
K
Yeah,
money
fair
is
enough.
for somebody that's like used to using Microsoft Money or something like that for home use.
Right.
Am I the only one that uses Libre? I just use the LibreOffice spreadsheet and I make my things, and I've got tabs for different things that I track. I tried using those things. I used YNAB when it was available without subscription service way back, but I ended up figuring out how to use a spreadsheet to track personal finance. I found it easier.
I use
but
that for my
Spreadsheet.
my budget planning and everything else. But
Yeah.
the difficulty I had with a spreadsheet for a lot of things was as my stuff got more complicated, a spreadsheet was a lot became more unwieldy.
Mhm.
And that's when I had rentals, and then basically I just used a very simple budget thing for the last several years because I didn't have a need for anything really complicated after I sold those rentals. But now I'm doing some things that require more complicated, so I'm back to using a Cash App. But Prophetic had this host. I know pretty much nothing about that. I just clicked on that. I just searched that. I have to look into that, Prophetic. That might be something to look into. John, you snuck in right here at the end. I don't know if you had anything, any words of sage words of wisdom to impart on us as we're kind of trailing this thing off. But please feel free to say whatever you like. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh man.
I read lips. You said that's all right.
I could see that part of it. Yeah. It's probably Zoom's probably looking at the wrong interface. Is probably what's happening.
Yeah.
I read his lips. He says, "Sorry, I'm running Windows and the audio doesn't work."
Oh, okay. That could be it.
So on that voice meter banana.
It can happen. So are we feeling good about Shotwell then? Was that? Cause I saw more north and south when I said Shotwell as far as an application to try out for next week.
It sounds like it's doable by most of us.
Yeah, I think so. Kind of low barrier of entry. I would love to do like a Cash App, but like that is a huge commitment and undertaking to like start tracking your stuff in a Cash App, and that would be a hard one to do. I'm gonna put it in the list just to have it in there because I think it's interesting. It might be something to talk about.
I'll tell you what, Nate.
Tell
me
what
your banking information, and I'll.
That's never gonna happen there, Steve.
I'll work on it.
You'll have to scan my chip that I don't have surgically implanted in the webbing of between my finger and thumb.
Plans.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys able to hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Hey, there we go.
Need more bars.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure somebody said something I didn't like when I was watching on YouTube, so I had to jump on and correct it. But I forgot who it was and what they said.
Well,
That's probably me.
Yeah, it says probably Linux Ninja or Shickle. Those would be the two that I always disagree with.
I'm sure.
For different reasons. I'm kidding.
It's so funny because incidentally, Linux Ninja and I like tend to have like super like opposite like opinions on stuff because I'm like ridiculously accepting of all the stuff that should be scary just because I'm weird. But then at the same time, you and I have like totally different perspectives on like on like like older technology and stuff like that. So it's just kind of I just managed to oppose everyone. That's where it's at. That's what's really happening.
If you ever wanted to have a talk show where you had diverging opinions, you put me on one end of the couch and Shickle on the other.
Well, or we can do it in the saloon. That works too.
We call it two canaries in a coal mine. See who dies first.
I think saloon's appropriate. I mean,
yeah. Absolutely. All right. So next week for application appetizer, we will do Shotwell, and I wish Eris were here so he could remind me because I'm very very quick at forgetting things. So.
And Nathan, don't forget next week it's going to be Shotwell.
I just wrote it down and put it in somewhere, so hopefully I don't forget. I got that goldfish memory going on sometimes. I've been hitting that too many times. Well, excellent. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to get out there before I kind of close things up here? So this is kind of the last call.
Where's the Linux Saloon Matrix room?
It's on the Matrix. I'll get the link for you.
It's in the Matrix somewhere.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for it to get added to the DLN space.
It's there already. If you go to I think linuxsaloon.com, don't type HTTPS, just type http://linuxsaloon.com. It'll forward to a page that does have it. You can check out there's a Matrix room link there.
It's a rhetorical question because I want to see more people show up.
Because I'm in the Matrix room. I
got one that's in the Element room, but very few people post there. I think you were the last one to make a post, Nate.
Probably. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of. I'm just gonna start posting like exclusives there just to see if people show up there. When I have time to actually do those things.
Yeah, I don't see the Matrix thing on Linux Saloon.
It should be
website.
there. If not, then I'm a numpty.
Nate, did you see that Austin Pritchett said he wants to hear more about how to utilize Pipewire?
That would be good. All right, so I put it. I'm putting the link to the Matrix room in the different chats. It is on. So, with that said, let's go ahead and. So, Steve, tomorrow you are doing your coffee clutch in the morning, and are you gonna have
in the morning?
Are you gonna have all your computery issues worked out by tomorrow morning?
I sure hope so.
Good.
But it was I had actually had to uninstall the deb and install the flat. I go back and forth with Zoom.
So
Stuff
I
just
only
starts to happen. So
I only
Zoom
run
is working. I'm good.
I only run the RPM and I only run an OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, and I haven't had issues in years. So there is that. I hope to see you tomorrow morning. I'm going to try and I'm not going to try. I am going to tune into you to your show when it starts at like 9:20 or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, stop by. I feel like an open, relaxed format. I'm going to go over. I thanks to Adam Grubbs, he told me something about OBS instead of using NDI teleport. So I am going to really stretch it out, and I am going to have 4 computers in front of me.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to have the one that I have Ubuntu on, the one I have the Debian GNOME 42 Peppermint on, and then my Pop, along with my desktop. And we'll talk about teleport. We'll talk about a little bit of differences of all of them, and just have fun.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you going to Southeast Linux Fest?
When is Southeast Linux Fest?
Oh, I don't know. In June. Was it the 10th? That weekend.
June 10th.
It's on their website now.
Are they going to have it now?
Yep, we're having it in person. Charlotte, North Carolina. The Sheridan.
That's awesome. I would like to go to that for sure. I've never been to a Linux Fest, and that would be just fun to go to one. I'd feel really out of place though, because like I hate crowds. I get like really
This is not like any other fest. You'd feel very welcome here. It's more like family. It's very non-commercial. I think you'd have a great time, and we'd expect you to actually come and talk about whatever's on your mind.
Free tech support.
That is not why you come.
Dang
so,
it.
I'm sending all the little old lady grandmas with 15-year-old netbooks.
I am going to put it on my calendar. In Linux Ninja, I expect you to send me a message somewhere, either in the Matrix sphere or in the Discord sphere or Telegram sphere, to make sure that I commit to it. So that's cool.
Yep, we've got group rates.
Oh, do you? Okay. Well, hit me up offline for sure. Offline, online, offline, online, something like that. Some line. Hit me up.
Send them a letter in the post. It's fine.
Yes.
I'll send you a text.
Send me a SMS. All right. So tomorrow, also at 1 p.m. Eastern, Destination Linux will be streaming live. Linux Out Loud, the next episode to release. Matt got his Steam Deck, and it's about why I'm jealous, but no, not really. But there's some discussion we're having. There is some discussion that we had about, could this be Steam's last push in the Linux foray? Could they, if this thing flops, could it be the end of Steam and Linux? So we do talk about that. And if you don't know any more things about me, you can go to cubiclate.com. I do stuff. Not lately much because of reasons. So I want to thank you all for being part of the conversation in both the Zoom meeting and in the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching the show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this really entertaining conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computers. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, all. See ya.
See ya.